Leo, this week, your mother in heaven is trying to reach you and she's not whispering anymore. Her message is clear, urgent, and soul deep. There's a truth you need to hear, not just to understand your past, but to finally release what was never meant for you to carry. If you landed on this video, trust me, it's not random. You didn't stumble here by chance while scrolling. Something brought you, maybe a feeling in your chest you couldn't explain, or a subtle nudge from a higher place. You might have been asking silently, why do I feel so heavy lately? Or, why does the pressure never ease, no matter what I achieve? If so, this is your moment. You're not just being called to listen. You're being invited to heal. Welcome to Eternal Mindfulness, where we don't just talk about astrology, we explore what it means for your heart, your history, and your healing. I'm someone who's worked with energy, ancestral patterns, and soul alignment for many years, and I can tell you this: what's happening this week between October 11th and 16th is more than a regular cosmic update. It's a spiritual intervention. With the moon passing through Scorpio and the sun forming a soft, intuitive sextile with Neptune, you'll start to feel things you've kept locked up for years. And when Pluto, the planet of generational transformation, joins the conversation, that's when buried truths surface. Especially those tied to your roots, your mother, or the women who came before you. You may not realize it yet, but some of the pain you're carrying doesn't belong to you. Some of the fears you have around love, success, and safety were inherited. They came from someone else's survival story, maybe even your mother's. She carried burdens silently so you wouldn't have to. But now, unknowingly, you've picked them up anyway. The energy of this week is trying to help you put them down. And that's the real reason you're here. Not just to hear a horoscope, but to hear a soul truth. Your mother, whether she's passed on or still present in another form, is speaking through this moment. What she wants you to know is simple, yet life-changing. You don't need to earn your worth through exhaustion. You don't need to prove your love by being perfect. You don't need to keep holding it all together just because someone once had to. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to ask for help. You are allowed to feel safe in your own body, without guilt. That is the message she's trying to get through. So if anything inside you is resonating with what I've just shared, take a moment now. Slow down. Feel your breath. And if your heart says yes, even a quiet yes, comment below. I'm ready to hear what my mother in heaven wants me to know. It's more than a comment. It's a confirmation. A doorway. A spiritual anchor. And if you choose to stay with me through this entire message, I promise what you discover today could change the way you see your past, your pain, and your purpose. So take your time. Let's walk through this together. Leo, sometimes what weighs on us the most isn't what's happening in our current life, it's the energy we've inherited without even knowing it. And this week, that invisible weight is rising to the surface for you. As someone who has worked for years with energetic patterns, ancestral threads, and soul-level transformation, I've seen this moment before, not just in charts or cards, but in the quiet ache of people who carry stories that aren't entirely their own. You, too, might be feeling it right now. A strange tension in your chest. A deep tiredness that sleep doesn't fix. A quiet grief you can't quite name. And if that's true for you, you're exactly where you're meant to be. Imagine this moment as a soft whisper from someone who loved you before you were even born. Someone who endured more than she ever let on. A mother, maybe not just in the physical sense, but in the energetic line, the matriarch, the protector, the one who bore the burden so you could live free. Only, something happened. Her pain, her survival, her silent strength, those didn't just disappear when she left. They imprinted on you. Not through words, but through energetic memory. Through the ways you always feel like you have to hold it all together, stay strong, be the dependable one, the one who doesn't fall apart. And that's the secret this week is trying to break open. Not to overwhelm you. Not to punish you. But to release you. The astrology confirms it. The moon crossing into Scorpio stirs the emotional undercurrent you usually keep hidden from everyone, even from yourself. The sun's aspect to Neptune adds layers of intuition, as if your inner voice is louder than usual, nudging you towards something you've been afraid to feel. And Pluto. That slow, transformative force that doesn't ask for permission, just silently digs until the truth can't stay buried. It brings legacy to the surface. Especially maternal legacy. Now enter the cards. The High Priestess comes first, not to bring answers, but to confirm what you already know. You felt it. The dreams, the symbols, the flickers of knowing when no one else understood. She represents the part of you that's always known something was hidden. The Ten of Wands. That's the exhaustion you've normalized. You've been carrying a load meant for more than one person. Maybe for an entire generation. The Moon card adds complexity. Illusions, secrecy, and emotional fog. Not everything you believe about yourself is actually yours. Much of it was passed down through silence. And finally, Judgment, a card that changes everything. Not because it makes the pain go away, but because it gives you the choice to rise. This isn't just a spiritual idea. It's something we see in life all the time. Families where certain members feel bound to be the strong one, often without knowing why. People who are wildly successful on the outside but privately collapsing under the pressure of invisible expectations. These aren't just psychological patterns. They're energetic contracts, agreements made before we could speak. And Leo, yours may have sounded something like, "I'll carry it so others don't have to." But you're allowed to break that agreement now. You're allowed to say no more. This is where faith steps in, not in a religious sense, but in the quiet courage it takes to believe your story doesn't have to end like theirs did. In many faith traditions, especially the teachings rooted in compassion and redemption, there's a reminder that we were never meant to carry the world alone. That restoration begins the moment we choose to lay down what was never ours in the first place. It's the same with healing ancestral pain. It doesn't have to come through dramatic gestures. It often begins with a whisper, "I see this. I no longer agree to it. I choose something else." So I ask you this gently: what emotion have you been holding that has no name? What burden keeps showing up in your relationships, in your work, in the way you talk to yourself at 2 a.m.? If you feel brave enough, share it in the comments. Not because it fixes everything, but because speaking it aloud is the first sacred act of release. And if your voice still feels quiet, that's okay too. Your soul has already said yes by being here. Keep listening. The truth is still unfolding. And you are not alone in it. You know, when we talk about healing, we often picture it as something big, some loud awakening or a dramatic moment of change. But the truth is, healing can be quiet. Sometimes, it starts with noticing a pattern you've been repeating for years without ever questioning it. That's what this part of the journey is about, looking closely, gently, at what you've been carrying that was never really yours. And for many Leos, that means tracing the unspoken family beliefs that got planted in your nervous system long before you had words to describe them. If you've ever caught yourself thinking, I need to work harder so I can be lovable, or I can't accept help or people will think I'm weak, you're not alone and you're not broken. These thoughts don't come from nowhere. They're passed down, like recipes or heirlooms. Only these aren't hand-me-downs made with love. They're survival codes. Emotional blueprints left behind by people who were doing their best in harder times, trying to protect you in the only way they knew how. Maybe your mother, or your grandmother, lived through loss, betrayal, abandonment. Maybe they had to become so strong, so self-sufficient, that needing someone else felt like danger. And maybe that energy never stopped moving. Maybe it found its way into you. That's why this week's energy is so powerful. With Pluto influencing the deep, earthy realms of legacy and identity, the universe is calling you not just to reflect but to reclaim. This is transformation at the root level. Not surface-level shifts, but soul-level reprogramming. And when we talk about the law of attraction, we often focus on what we want to bring in. But it's just as much about what we allow ourselves to release. Because what we subconsciously believe is what we broadcast into the world. If you walk through life with a buried belief that says, I have to suffer to be seen, that's the frequency you emit. And the world mirrors it back. What if you believed instead, I deserve ease? What would change? Color therapy is one of the simplest yet most profound ways to start shifting energy in real time. This week, think about inviting colors into your space that don't just look good but feel good. Turquoise helps soften the heart and release emotional trauma. It's calming, like exhaling after holding your breath too long. Soft white invites clarity. It clears confusion and connects you to a higher sense of purpose, your true self, untethered from expectations. Amber yellow reignites inner confidence. It's solar, bold, but not overpowering, perfect for Leos who are rediscovering their own strength beyond performance. Let yourself be that dusty lamp for a second. The one that's been sitting in the corner of a room for generations. It's beautiful. But no one's seen it shine in a long time. And maybe, until now, you didn't even know it could. This is your moment to wipe away what's dimmed you, not because you owe anyone proof of your light, but because you deserve to see it for yourself. I've guided many people through this moment, the confrontation with inherited belief systems, the discomfort of letting go, the strange grief that comes when you realize your coping mechanisms were never really your truth. But every time someone lets go of an old identity built on struggle, something miraculous happens. They don't become weaker. They become softer. And in that softness, they become stronger than ever before. So I want to gently ask you, what have you been holding on to that doesn't feel like yours? What belief, what pressure, what role? And what would happen if you let yourself put it down? If this resonates, write it in the comments. Say it out loud to the universe, even if it feels vulnerable. Write, I choose to set down what was never mine. I allow myself to live lightly. Because sometimes, the biggest breakthroughs start with the simplest truths. You were never meant to carry this alone. Leo, Let's talk honestly for a moment, not from the mountaintop, not from a place of authority, but from experience. Real, lived, raw experience. Because success, the way most of us were taught to chase it, often comes with a cost we don't talk about. We were told to work harder, shine brighter, outperform, be the leader, stay in control. But has that version of success ever really made you feel light? Has it ever made you feel safe in your own skin? Or has it, more often than not, left you restless, drained, secretly wondering what more you have to prove before you're finally allowed to rest? This is the moment to pause and ask yourself a question you may have been avoiding. What does success mean to me? Not my parents, not society, not the people who praised my strength but overlooked my softness. What if your version of success no longer fits who you are now? And what if that's not failure, but the beginning of real freedom? This week's energy gives you permission to explore that. Under the influence of deep Pluto transits and the rebirth frequency of the Judgment card, you're standing in front of a door that doesn't need to be broken open. It just needs you to stop guarding it. You've spent so long managing every detail, carrying the pressure to be strong, to make things happen, to control the outcome. But what if control isn't the path to joy? What if letting go not of your goals, but of how rigidly you grip them is the breakthrough? When I work with people who hit their peak, but feel empty inside, I notice a pattern. They chased a version of success that was built to impress, not to fulfill. And that's not their fault. It's what we're shown. It's what we're rewarded for. But that version of success often leaves little room for softness, for grace, for breath. And it definitely doesn't make space for healing. So here's an invitation. During the week of October 11th through 16, take just 10 minutes a day to sit with yourself. Not to plan. Not to produce. Just to breathe. Lie down. Put on a piece of healing music. 528 Hz is a beautiful frequency that many say restores harmony on a cellular level. Let your body unclench. Let your mind drift. Ask yourself, what would success look like if it felt like peace? And if you're ready to go deeper, try this. Each day this week, write a one-line answer to this prompt. For me, success is. Don't overthink it. Don't filter it. Just let it come through. One day it might be feeling safe to say no. Another day, being able to take a full day off without guilt. By the end of the week, you might discover that your true definition of success is not some grand mountaintop, but a gentle return to yourself. This is where the Judgment card comes in. It's not about punishment or dramatic endings, it's about honest awakenings. It's the call you feel in your gut that says, there is more to life than this constant push. It's your higher self asking, are you ready to live, not just perform? That card doesn't demand a perfect answer. It just asks for a real one. So I'll ask you too, what does success look like when it's rooted in freedom instead of fear? When it's measured by how you feel inside rather than how you're perceived from the outside? If something in you stirred reading that, write it down. Share it in the comments. Speak it into the world, not just so others can witness it, but so the universe can. Write, my version of success feels like. Let that be your ripple. Let that be your turning point. Because if we want to live freely, we have to first define what freedom even means to us. And maybe, just maybe, success is not something you chase anymore. Maybe it's something you give yourself permission to feel. There comes a moment on every healing journey when the work stops being about reflection and starts being about care, real, embodied care. If the previous steps have helped you see the weight you've been carrying, then this one is about tending to the part of you that's been holding it for so long. Not with judgment. Not with more pressure. But with gentleness. With consistency. With presence. Think of your body not as a machine to push harder, but as a house your soul lives in, a sacred space that deserves attention, nourishment, and rest. And during this week, from October 11th to 16th, you're being given a small but powerful window to begin again from the inside out. Let's start with the body, because the body never lies. If you've been feeling wired but tired, if your sleep is shallow or your energy burns out by midday, that's your nervous system waving a white flag. It's not broken. It's overworked. And small changes, especially during high-energy cosmic weeks like this, can ripple out in ways you don't expect. Reducing stimulants like caffeine and refined sugar isn't about punishment or restriction. It's about quieting the noise inside so your intuition can speak more clearly. It's about trading the temporary high for something deeper, balance. Warm foods, especially grounding ones like mushroom broth, turmeric, and walnuts, help anchor your energy. These aren't just food theory messages to your body that say, "I'm here. I'm listening. I want to take care of you." Breath work, particularly the 478 technique, is one of the simplest ways to return to yourself. 4 seconds in, hold for 7, exhale for 8. Try it each morning before the day pulls at you. Let it be a moment of sovereignty before you start responding to the world. You don't need a yoga mat, incense, or a playlist. Just you, your breath, and the quiet intention to reconnect. But healing isn't only physical. It's emotional. And that's where things get tender. If you've been walking through life feeling like you have to stay strong all the time, you may not even realize how much grief you've tucked away. One gentle way to let it move is through writing, specifically, writing to your mother in heaven, or to any maternal figure whose absence has left an echo. Start with this simple phrase: "If you're listening, here's what I need you to know." Let whatever follows be unfiltered. This isn't for anyone else to read. It's a conversation between your heart and the memory of someone who once held it. In relationships, this is also the week to practice vulnerability in small, intentional ways. You don't have to pour your soul out or explain every feeling. Sometimes healing begins with a simple question asked without armor: "What's been on your heart lately?" When we stop bracing for rejection and allow ourselves to connect from where we really are, we invite depth into our bonds. And depth heals. Now let's talk about money, because for many, finances are tied to self-worth. You might be someone who gives generously, even when you're depleted, because somewhere along the line, you learned that giving made you valuable. That's a beautiful instinct, but it's incomplete. Giving without receiving creates imbalance, and imbalance breeds resentment, exhaustion, and scarcity. So this week, pause and ask, where am I overextending? Where am I not allowing others to give back to me? Receptivity is not weakness. It's spiritual maturity. It's how energy stays alive between people, between you and life itself. If you're someone who works with energy or simply feels things deeply, color can help guide you this week. Royal purple supports clarity and sovereignty. It reminds you that you are worthy of abundance without over-efforting. Gold brings in power, warmth, and a subtle glow of magnetism. You don't need to wear a crown to embody royalty. Sometimes, all it takes is honoring your energy like it's something sacred. Because it is. So here's my question for you, Leo, and I ask it with genuine care. Will you treat yourself this week like a soul that matters? Not just in theory. Not just when everything is done. But now, in the middle of your life, in the middle of the mess. Will you feed yourself with love? Will you pause long enough to hear what your body needs? Will you let softness be your medicine? If the answer is yes, or even maybe write it down below so the universe can witness your intention. Comment, I deserve to be loved, to rest, and to live fully. Let that be your prayer, your promise, your turning point. And let this be the week you begin, not with grand plans, but with quiet, radical care. Even as you move through these revelations about inherited pain, silent promises, and the slow unraveling of everything you thought you had to bear, there's something deeper happening. It's subtle, but it's real. There's a quiet knowing that keeps showing up, and if you've been paying attention, you've likely felt it too. A chill that runs through you at just the right moment. A song that plays when you need it. A flicker of light in the corner of your eye when no one else is around. These are not accidents. These are touch points, gentle signals from a loving force that never stopped watching over you. Maybe it's your mother in heaven. Maybe it's the lineage you come from. Maybe it's the part of your own soul that has always remembered what your mind forgot, that you are guided. For some, the signs come in the form of nature. A white butterfly crossing your path on a day when you're on the verge of giving up. A repeated number 111, 222, 777 popping up on clocks, receipts, license plates. For others, it's a scent you can't place, a breeze when there's no wind, a sudden emotion rising without warning. These are not coincidences. They're echoes. Invitations. They're the subtle language of spirit, saying, you're not alone. You're seen. You're supported. The more you notice them, the more they show up. The more you trust them, the more they guide you. But this isn't about looking outside of yourself for answers. This part of your journey is about remembering that the divine isn't far away, it lives within you. In the choices you make. In the energy you carry. In the courage it takes to say, I don't have to follow the script anymore. When you stop repeating the old patterns, when you decide that your story can change, that's when you begin writing a new chapter, not just for you, but for everyone who comes after you. That's sacred work. And yes, it can feel scary. But it's also the most powerful thing you'll ever do. I know how easy it is to stay in what's familiar, even when it hurts. The mind clings to patterns, even painful ones, because they're predictable. But your spirit wants freedom. It wants expansion. It wants you to feel alive again, not just functioning. That means releasing identities that no longer reflect who you are. Letting go of narratives like, I always have to be the strong one, or I'm too much, or I have to earn love. You don't. You never did. Your worth was never up for negotiation. You were born with the right to choose joy. To choose peace. To choose softness without guilt. And most importantly, to choose your own path. The one that doesn't ask you to shrink. The one that doesn't force you to carry burdens that don't belong to you. The one that feels like home, even if no one else understands it yet. So here's what I want you to know, deeply and truly. Destiny is not something that happens to you. It's something you participate in. You are not a victim of your past, your lineage, or even your fear. You are a creator. And every single time you act from your truth, no matter how small that action may seem, you shift the energy of your entire life. That's what it means to be aligned. That's what it means to walk in purpose. If today feels like a turning point, it's because it is. And if something in you is whispering, "I'm ready," then say it out loud. Make it real. Make it heard. You don't need a ceremony. You don't need a perfect plan. You just need a clear yes. Because the moment you choose to live from your soul, everything around you begins to rearrange to support that choice. So take this moment, right now, and anchor it. Let the universe witness your declaration. If you feel it, write it in the comments, not for me, but for yourself. Say, "Today, I choose a new path. I am ready to live from my soul." And as you do, breathe into it. Not just as a sentence, but as a truth you're willing to step into. Because this isn't about becoming someone new. It's about coming home to who you've always been. And now, Leo, as we close this sacred space we've shared together, I want you to take a moment not just to reflect, but to really feel the truth beneath all the words you've heard today. The truth is, you are not a burden. You are not broken. You are not here to carry the pain of generations without rest. You are light. Even when dimmed by grief, even when clouded by expectation, even when hidden beneath years of being strong, your light remains. It's always been there, quiet, steady, waiting for you to remember. You are not the consequence of the past. You are the answer to someone's silent prayer. You are the one who breaks the cycle. You are the one who writes the new story. You were never meant to live a life that feels like surviving. You were meant to live fully, to feel deeply, and to walk in freedom that comes from within, not from proving, not from pushing, but from finally coming home to yourself. So before you click away, I gently ask, what if this is the week that everything changes, not because the world outside you shifts, but because you choose to shift how you show up for yourself? What if healing isn't something far off in the future, but something you create in this very moment, by deciding you're worthy of it now? What if the pain you've been carrying wasn't yours to keep, and letting go is the most courageous act of love you could ever offer to yourself and to those who came before you? Take a breath. Let your shoulders drop. Feel the space you've created today, not just in your mind, but in your soul. Do you feel that? That's yours. You made that. You earned that peace. Now keep choosing it, again and again, even when it feels unfamiliar. Especially then. This week, may you walk with clarity, knowing that your mother, whether in heaven or within you, smiles each time you honor your own heart. May you experience moments of quiet beauty, where you don't have to do anything to deserve joy. May you rest. May you feel safe in your softness. May you witness how your willingness to be real becomes the very thing that sets others free. And if this message spoke to something inside you, no matter how small, don't let it disappear into the scroll. Speak it. Anchor it. Write in the comments, "I am light. I release what is not mine. I am ready to live in my truth." Let that be your affirmation. Let that be your energetic agreement with this new chapter. Thank you for spending this time with me, for trusting me, and for allowing yourself to feel. Every like, every comment, every moment you choose to stay present with your own healing helps grow this sacred community we call Eternal Mindfulness. Your support means the world not just to this channel, but to the collective shift we are all a part of. So if you know someone who needs to hear this, share it. Be the messenger. And if you haven't already, make sure to like, subscribe, and leave your voice in the comments below because your voice matters. You matter. You are light. And light does not break. It bends, it flickers, but it never fades. Never forget that.